Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. We are the original recyclers. No suits required, just guts and hard work. Here is your host, Brett Ekart.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Here we are.
Okay. Special edition podcast today. We're having our 50th anniversary this year, and I was trying to think who I would interview for our 50th anniversary. So I figured it wouldn't be a good 50th anniversary podcast without the two of you guys. So Ken Bull, my dad Rod Ekart, and some Coors Lights.
Coors Lights.
So thanks for coming.
Saturday afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every day's Saturday.
Yeah, every day's Saturday.
Two guys that are retired, so every day is fucking Saturday,
Well,
which is
that's
awesome.
because you can't remember what the rest of the week is.
So I wanted to get you guys in here because, you know, there's so much history, so many stories, and we won't fit them all in today. But I couldn't think of two better people to have the conversation with going into this weekend. For everybody that doesn't know, we're having a truck show on Saturday. You know, kind of a Hall of Fame wall unveiling on Friday party, and it's mostly for our people, mostly for our people that have worked for the company, are working for the company, trucks that want to come in from out of town and show off their trucks. So, but it's mostly just a big party celebration for us. So we're throwing our own birthday party, and it just so happens to be on your actual birthday, July 2nd. So.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if this stuff doesn't happen on purpose.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, shit works out the way it's supposed to work out, you know. So I kind of want to take it all the way back. You know, we started technically in 1972 on United Metals side. Ken, what year did you start?
I believe it was, I think I worked a little bit the summer of 72. Then I think for maybe a month or something like that. And then I went to detasseling corn where my mother worked at Crookham's. And then later on that fall, I started working back at United Metals. And pretty much been there ever since. I think at one point in time I took off, maybe a 2 or 3 month hiatus. And decided...
Went to work for the mine.
Huh?
Went to work for the mine.
No, I actually went to work for McCluskey's.
Oh, okay.
Delivering food.
So working
20-hour days and figuring out, why am I doing this? You know?
So why'd you take off did you get fired or did you just
No.
quit?
More money, you know.
Okay. And what year is that?
That was probably, maybe around 74 or 5.
Okay. So you were there for a couple years and then it feels like that kind of happens a lot even today. Like people will leave and go chase more money thinking that it's going to be a lot better. And sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm like, fuck, go ahead. Go do what you got to do. But oftentimes, you know, we get the phone call of, hey, do you mind if we come back and go do what we're doing? But
You know, the whole thing back in the day when Rod and me and the rest of the family and some of our other friends kind of hung around each other. And we got acquainted, and of course, we was out hell raising all the time. And then pretty quick, your dad bought the company, and we all went to work for him.
yeah.
That's a long time ago.
So some of my fondest memories, which is why I've wanted to get Coors Lights today, is even when I was a teenager, and even preteen, 12, 13, is even in the summer. Obviously during school I wouldn't be down there during the week very often, but unless we had a day off. But in the summer, come down, I'd work in the recycling center or do whatever at the time, get a few hours in of work and a lot of fuck around time. And at 5 o'clock, somebody would make a beer run. or 4:30 or whatever time that was. Dale remembers it as him making the beer run a lot.
He did a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so we laugh about that all the time. But I was like, dude, you know what? If we do this podcast, I'm gonna have some canned Coors Light, and that's how it's gonna go. Because sitting around as a young teenager in the office and listening to grown men bullshit that have actually put in a full days of hard work and then some, actually sweating, actually like getting after it, is kind of what shaped a lot of my I don't know, my respect, or a lot of my just my childhood of watching people get out there and get after it every day. So that's the reason why. And I know you guys both still like Coors Light.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to witness a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, I did. I got to see a lot of people come and go through the yard, right? I got to see a lot of guys that were good guys. I got to see some guys that were maybe not such good guys, and which is kind of the nature of our beast that we live in every day, in the industry we in. It's because it's a fairly labor intense in some positions, and you got truck drivers, and you got guys out there busting their ass all day. You got equipment operators, and so you get to see the kind of the full gamut of people. So tell me a guy that you kind of that you think about when you think back in the history of the early years of United Metals, United Hauling, a guy that kind of give me a good story or a good memory of one of the old school guys, for one of the first guys that pops up into your head.
Well, I'm going to talk about maybe Pete Antunes.
That's the one I thought about, too.
And maybe even Jake.
Yep, those two were... They were actually there before we were.
Oh, yeah. They worked for the judge, Birnbaum, before.
Mm-hmm.
We even got to work on summer days
Mm-hmm.
cleaning transformers.
Yep. Yeah.
So in the 70s, early 70s,
Yeah.
late,
Yeah, early
Yeah.
70s.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in junior high school, working summers for Judge Birnbaum at United Metal and Scrap. United Iron
Yep, United Iron and Metals.
in Nampa, Idaho. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what I really appreciate about Pete, we were running old pieces of, good equipment at the time, I guess. 1957 Bantam crane.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was smooth as glass, smooth as butter. He knew how to run that, swing that magnet, and get a lot of stuff done every day and not cause a lot of people a lot of extra work.
Yep.
And
that's
who we set our goals. I
That's
know
who I
that
worked
was your mentor to make you such a good equipment operator.
Oh, yeah.
It was just trying to keep up with him.
Yep.
And how much longer did he work there while you guys were there? Was he?
He worked into the 80s.
Did he?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I bet it was in
And then he
82.
quit because of back problems.
Yeah. Then Jake hung around until
He retired. He was,
it was probably 86, 87.
and I think Jake was right around 70 at the time when he retired.
So you guys have cut a lot of iron into a lot of big shit into small stuff.
Oh, heck, I still got burn marks on my hands from way back in the day. We'd wear gloves that had kind of a cuff on it. Of course, you're out there cutting them with the cutting torch, and sparks are flying everywhere, and they're going down in your gloves, and fling it off, and
Kind of learn to puff your belly out when one went down the front of your
Oh,
shirt,
yeah.
so it
Yeah.
go clear into your pants. It's going to take the burn on your belly.
Yeah, and hopefully it didn't get down too far.
So what about Ray? What about old man Ray?
Raymond Carey.
Yeah,
His
Well, his
dad
dad
was
worked
there. Yeah.
because Ray retired,
Mhm.
from United Metals, and Ray's as far back as I can remember, he was there. So I'm sure he was there before I even was born.
He worked for Birnbaum as well.
Right.
Him and his dad worked for Birnbaum in Caldwell Yard. When my dad worked for Birnbaum in Nampa.
And that was when it was United Iron.
Yep.
And Grandpa partnered up with Birnbaum in 72 was the year. Or he bought it, or partnered up with Birnbaum in 72?
I'm going to say in 72 he started bid salvage.
Okay.
Right, and that was actually across the tracks, right next to the ice plant that's not there anymore.
Scott's
Oh,
Ice.
it's right where our burn yard's at right now.
Yeah, on what we call Main Street.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And but at that point, there was the Nampa yard still and the Caldwell yard, correct?
Right. Yeah, and then the judge wanted to retire, and he could see that my dad, which was the manager of both yards, was leaving and doing his own thing. So then he decided to go ahead and sell out to my dad.
So going back to Ray, and when did Gino come along?
Oh,
What-
that had to have been,
Had to be-
87, 89, somewhere in
yeah,
there.
quite a bit later.
Okay. So Gino's one of the guys that we're putting on the Hall of Fame wall. Gino's a guy that, never ever became a manager, never became, he moved up the food chain too far, other than he just shows up every day and
Hard worker.
puts in an honest day's work, right? So we I always appreciated that about Gene. He breaks a lot of shit. It still always has, still does on occasion, but he's slowing down for sure. But I always kind of had a fond liking for Gino just because he's willing to show up every day, and that's getting harder and harder to find. Was it always the case? I mean, even when you guys were younger, was fucking getting people to show up as hard as it is today every
we
day?
showed up because we needed the money.
And he did too.
Yeah.
Gene started. He went from he was sorting worms at a worm factory.
Yeah.
And cleaning metals that he could come get from myself, Ken, when we were kind of managing the non-ferrous side of the things. And so Gina would come every night, take stuff home, clean it up for us, bring it back, and then go sort worms. And then realized he could make more money.
Yeah.
Just
Actually,
working for us, yeah.
Okay.
And then we still let him take stuff home and clean it because, just to improve the product, so we could sell it for more
Shit,
money.
he was still doing that not that long ago, just a few years ago, until finally I was like, Gene, I'll let you, but at the end of the day, you probably just need to go home and relax. And get ready for the next day. Because if you're at home cleaning scrap all day or all night, and he's getting older to the point where it's like I'm more concerned, like just it's hot outside, it's cold outside. I'm like, you just need to probably just take a few.
Gene's just about my age or your age.
He's Debbie's age.
Yeah,
Debbie's age, okay.
He's 1 year on paper officially from being able to retire, is what it amounts to. So, and then we've got Bob Smith, that we're gonna put on the Hall of Fame wall. So give me a little history about Bob Smith.
Yeah, Bob Smith was working for Fleetwood Homes and moving trailer houses. They actually started hauling lumber into the plants, and then they ended up needing the homes that they built moved, so they started doing that. And then they decided they're not going to do that anymore, and so Bob Smith became available, and then Bert hired him, and the rest of that guy's history. I mean, he just.
What year? What about what year was that? That he came to work for United Hauling?
It had to be 80, probably 84, 85.
Okay.
Because he got into an 82 Kenworth. That's how I remember stuff, was by trucks. And actually, he took the truck that I was driving when he came to work for us.
So, and then what year did we switch him over to? At some point, we moved him off. We moved him from hauling to local. We moved him to metals, and that was while I was that was when I was there full time. What year do you remember that was when we moved him, roughly?
That was in the 90s.
Oh,
no,
it was?
Maybe even
It had to be
Could've
like
been 90.
2000. Oh, did you move him to metal side?
Yeah,
Well,
it
he
had to
was
be
still-
like 2001
he drove that.
or 2.
He drove that Peterbilt that I had, that 2000,
38.
38. So he drove that thing for probably 3 or 4 years at least.
Yeah.
Remember, we had to go pick him up
Mm-hmm.
in Baker that one time.
Which what's crazy is truck 38 still in the fleet.
Mhm.
Like 38 still, it's still going to this
Yeah.
day. Which is the good thing about those older trucks like that. That you can still work on them and you can still keep them going. Plus we have Barry and the truck shop and those guys do a good job of.
Well, they're all like children. We don't like to get rid of them.
Yeah, we're good buyers, bad sellers.
Yeah.
We'll buy more shit. We just have a hard time getting rid of it. We've got another guy that we're gonna put on the Wall of Fame, and Greg Brown.
The Rattler.
Yeah, man, if I wish I could get a hold of that guy. I hope somebody out there listens to this podcast or something. Greg Brown, if you're out there, please figure out a way to get a hold of us. He came and visited us about a year or two ago, and I'll be damned if I can't figure out how to get his phone number or how to get a hold of him. So maybe I need to hire one of those like private investigator people to like just see if they can find him.
Mm-hmm.
But Greg was super influential in my career. But he was there, I want to say like 2000 is when he came, 99, like my senior year of high school. Maybe.
Yeah, could be. I'd lose track of
But
time.
in that
I was
range?
thinking closer to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it was like right around there because I remember it was because he bought Dave and Teresa's house. So I want to say it was like right in that range because they were there up until high school graduation. Dave and Teresa were there. So like I know it had to be somewhere in that range or after that. Because it wasn't that long after. Remember when he started was the price of scrap was so shitty that he, his claim to fame for a long time was just he could go figure out how to get scrap in the door and he couldn't pay any money for it. So he'd always talk shit. Like even in like 05, 06, 07 when the price of scrap was good, his way of kind of like poking fun at us, like I could buy scrap when you couldn't give anybody money for scrap.
The funny thing about Greg was at that time it was trying to find a niche for him because all he wanted to talk about is when he was in the Glazier Union with the glass and talked about when he was in Nam and he rattled about that stuff all the time. I mean, he was just to the point where he's almost annoying. And
Oh, he was.
yeah, and I one year when you hired him, I said, where'd you get this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he came from probably Snitcher's probably a
Jim
That's-
Goodrich wanted us to have him,
right.
which I'm glad.
Yeah, and the way it turned out, because Rod put me out there to go beat on doors. Of course, I'm not good at beating on doors.
That's not your
Get 'em.
specialty?
No, heck no. Yeah. So I took Greg out with me one day, and he stood in there for 15 minutes talking to these people. Of course, they wanted him to get the hell out of the way, and talked them into putting a bin on their property. And I went back to the office and I told Rod, I said, I found him a job. And the reason why I got probably 90% of the customers he got is because they got tired of listening to him.
Yeah.
Because he just talked their leg off.
That's kind of part of being a salesman
Yeah.
a little bit, right? I mean, just being willing to talk people into submission.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that to it, and I have some great memories of Greg. So I spent a lot of time with him, driving around, visiting customers. Greg's really the one that taught me how to sell non-ferrous. Like that's how I first started selling non-ferrous. Is Greg. He had all his price sheets and who he'd sell stuff to. At that time, we were selling a lot of stuff to Simon & Sons, Norm.
Mm-hmm.
And but Greg had like Charlie Neal at Metro, which I know you guys had dealt with Metro, and then Norm Simon, Joseph Simons, and there was and then obviously we were exporting stuff to Leah at that time, but there was only certain items that we were sending to her. But Greg really honed in on selling. Most of our material at that time went to Simon when I was there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We sold a lot to Sims too.
Yeah. But that was before I started Folds, because I remember sitting down with them, and it was either Metro or it was Simon and Sons. Like that was kind of the two, or Leah. And I don't know how it transitioned from him out there beating on doors, because he still was doing both at the time, right? I mean, he was out there trying to find customers, but then also kind of organizing the loading process.
Well, plus he was paying customers too.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what was out there in the yard at all times, which was really good because he made an inventory of it.
Yeah.
Knowing what he had.
Mm-hmm.
And, for the most part, we'd go out there and look and see what we got and, pretty much guess at it. He knew what he had out there.
Yeah. He was pretty organized.
Yeah.
Probably that from the glass company. We always talk about it, the guys now here that, Tom Buxton, we always talk about Greg and the fucking glass company, because that was where, he spent a lot of time.
Wasn't he a math teacher at one point too? I mean,
Yeah.
so he was excellent with math.
He was very good at math.
He actually went to college to become a math teacher. And I think he might even have taught for a year or two. And then he went to work for the glass company and became the general manager of, I think, the Northwest for that company. And then finally something happened with it. And,
Enough Greg time.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, I got fond memories of Greg, but some of the best stories I heard were even before Greg's time. So tell me, I love hearing about that GE job you guys did downtown Boise in the 80s, right? Grandpa was still here, and
It was off of Gowan Road actually.
yeah, which is in Boise.
Yeah, not downtown.
Oh, not downtown, but it's in Boise.
It's
okay.
in Boise, yeah.
All right, I missed by a couple miles. So tell me about the GE job, because there's a couple old relics around here somewhere. Every once in a while I'll see.
The bolt.
Yep, the big ass copper bolt. I saw one before Greg at Rural Steel retired. I saw one of the old school torch tips, and he said he remembers, because I think at that time Norco was providing the oxygen and the cutting tips and everything else for that job, right?
All the equipment, yeah.
So tell me about the GE job. How did it come about? What was the deal? What was going on at the time?
General Electric just contacted the local scrap yards, and then they, my dad, and they made a deal together, and then they introduced.
Did they have to bid it out,
me
or was
to
it?
them.
Did they just figure out who to go with? Did they make you put a bid on it?
I think my dad was pretty nervous about getting that job. I mean, he wanted it was something. I mean, it was what was it, like 4,000 tons of scrap inside a building, everything brand new, and
There might have been more than that, because that armature that was in there weighed, I think it was 250,000 pounds that they rolled on that rail car that was specially built.
yeah.
And there was some of those, what we call those dome-looking things back in the day.
Yeah, whatever.
But those things were like
45 tons.
6 inches thick and just weighed up a whole bunch of weight.
Did you have to cut them inside the building, or could you get it outside to cut it? Like when
We took everything outside.
to cut it.
General Electric had their manager come up, and they hired a crane company out of Portland to come down and
Move everything out.
They just blew a hole in the side of the building and rented the property next door, and the property, it had rail track behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so was able to load some rail cars, and
That's how they got that armature on the rail car.
yeah, that's right. I remember
So it was a lot of non-ferrous in there, right? What was the plant? What was it?
There
Was
wasn't
it
a lot of non-ferrous. No, not
No?
really.
just mostly iron?
Yep.
Okay.
Just everything it took to build a steam plant. It was a steam generation plant, all stored in one building.
Oh.
They were paying like $10,000 a month, back in 1987,
To generate.
just to house that thing.
just to store it. And they stored it for 10 years before they cut it up for scrap.
And it was already done generating electricity.
Never did use.
It was brand new.
Never
Oh.
went. It's going to Whoops, Oregon.
They actually had a wax coating on a lot of the stuff to keep it from
Perfect.
rusting.
Oh, so they just used the Boise facility to build it.
No, they just store it.
Oh.
Because
Built
they was
somewhere
gonna
else
they
and
was gonna
stored
put it someplace and
They
put it into production, but it never happened.
Okay.
From what I remember, I
headed
think
to
there was like 25 to 50 of them scattered all over the United States that they never used.
What about?
Remember the iron that we got years later? We brought it into the scrapyard. All that plate and all the I-beams and all
Oh, that was from the nuclear plant up there.
Exactly. See, and that material was waiting for that.
Right. That was and the 3 Mile Island happened at that particular time too, and that pretty much shut down all the nuclear plants that they was building along the Columbia.
I just watched a documentary on that on Netflix about that was like one of the first big nuclear plants, and that 3 Mile Island, there was built purposely where it was at because of the water that was around it there to cool the reactor. And that was like only the phase one. They were actually working on building the second phase and the third phase of that to make it even bigger before. I mean, it wasn't that old when it happened. I was kind of surprised. I figured that plant had been running for a long time, but it was pretty fucking new when all that went down. So yeah, they said that kind of killed the whole nuclear power generation for a long time because people were nervous about what could happen.
And there's still a lot of the plants that are still going.
Yeah, exactly.
That the government don't want you to know.
No. Well, and because they're in all reality they're pretty goddamn efficient, like for generating electricity, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, I remember reading or watching that show just here not that long ago. So I'm always thinking about some of the cool older jobs. One of the ones that comes to my mind too is when you guys loaded up all those rail cars, all those flat deck rail cars. And what was that? Who was that? What was that job for? For which rail company? When you guys cut up all those rail cars and we hauled them off the flatbeds?
Oh, that came out of Boise Cascade.
Boise
in
Cascade.
Emmett.
Okay.
All of those flatbed rail cars that they had to haul logs.
We worked
We
at
got the
TVM on it.
contract.
You worked with Dave and at TVM.
That's when I was down there in Burley doing the demo job for Simplots.
Oh.
Okay.
And Brad and I think you were involved in it, plus TVM, and basically loading all these old log flatbeds on flatbeds to haul to Portland.
So, when I think about you, Ken, I mean, one of the things that always comes to my mind is you've been around long enough, which means you've operated a ton of different equipment. I've always said you're the best equipment operator I've ever been around, like bar none. You could put you on anything. And if you ask my dad, he said you'll break a lot of shit.
That's the nature of the beast.
But that's the nature of the beast of what we
That's
do,
what we do.
right? And so I have a little empathy in me sometimes when stuff rolls into the shop, because as long as the guy running it wasn't, brand new, or as long as the guy running it, shit just happened because he was trying to get stuff done. I'm like, oh, I feel like I've been down this road. But of all the equipment you've ran, in your lifetime, like what brings back some of the fondest memories, or what, or it makes you just chuckle? Anything that you got? Any good equipment stories for us? Anything that comes to mind?
One of the things was when I first started running the cable crane, and we didn't have outriggers on it. I mean, it's basically a rubber-mounted crane that was cable operated, and you had to use both hands and both feet to run the whole thing, and you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, you pretty much had a workout.
Oh yeah, there's no
It
nothing.
doesn't
There
like
was no
machines
hydraulic
now.
assist.
Yeah.
There was no. It was just It was all
Yeah.
manpower.
Yeah.
It's like manual steering.
No
I
air
can only-
conditioning and like in
Oh,
the...
no.
Well, we broke all the glass out of it so we could
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, exactly. And what glass was in it got broke out anyway, so, you know. But to me, that was probably the most interesting machine, is because you're picking up pretty heavy weight, and you had to know where the tip point was on that crane to keep from tipping over.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that Pete kind of taught me back in the day.
Do you think that made you a better like equipment operator once the excavators came around and the other stuff that kind of...
Oh, probably. Because
you had to
that's
run-
when I learned how to work on everything, too.
So do you remember when you forgot to put the boom lock in and you got into the power lines and flattened all the tires?
That wasn't my fault. Well, it was
I've heard
kinda-
that one a lot too. Like even I've heard that one a lot. And I had worked
I
for
thought
him
the
nearly.
boom lock was in, and I heard it ratcheting, and it came down, and I'm like, oops. And pretty quick, I hear like 50,000 volts just going off. Of course, I grabbed the boom and got it out of there fast enough to where it didn't quite blow the tires out.
Oh no, they were all flat.
Well,
Every fucking
they
one of them.
were after that happened. But if the tires would have blown out, it would have hit the ground, and I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because
Or if I'd have been hanging onto the side of the crane, I hadn't been there either.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so we sat there and we got off the crane after I pissed my pants, and sat there and watched the tires just go flat. And I think they were fairly new tires at the time, too.
Melted all the inner tubes.
Yep,
We didn't lose the tires, it's all the inner tubes.
yeah.
Which is good. I mean, we replace those are easier, or at least less expensive to replace than the tires.
The funny thing about that is that here comes the people out of the plant. So what happened? Oh, we don't know.
Yeah, we didn't know. We played dumb as hell.
So how long have you guys been friends? Like how long have you known each other? Did you know? Did you meet at work? You meet before that? Like,
So-
69,
that.
70.
Yeah. See, when you guys first moved up on the hill, I was good friends with Dave Robler, which was your neighbor, and also Dean, which is Debbie's brother, that lived across the street. So
Okay.
there was 3 houses there.
okay.
And all of us kids at that time were all the same age. And that's how we all got to meet each other. Then we started hanging around, and then the cousins, Ricky and Ron, Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
and then their cousin. And then we all became pretty much kind of like the Little Rascals, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Before there's video games, before you could stay inside all day, and the houses
Yeah.
were smaller, and parents said, "Go outside and do shit."
Oh, no, we was out doing
Yeah.
other things at that time.
Yeah.
I think we was all probably around 13, 14, somewhere in there, maybe 12.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in there. But we figured out how to steal our first beer.
Oh,
Figured
yeah.
out how to drink it.
Yep.
Where'd you
Figured out how
steal?
to get
Where'd you
away
steal it
with
from?
Mm-hmm.
Go to the grocery store, Beams, and you buy a pop and dump the pop out and open a beer and put it in the pop can and pay for the pop on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you dump the pop at?
Have
Like in the fountain?
Have somebody else steal a pack of cigarettes so we'd have beer and cigarettes.
Exactly.
14
then
years
we'd go
old.
over to Dave Robler's house, and he had a space up in their garage that we'd go up there and smoke. We never ever got caught. I don't know how we didn't.
Well, we got caught stealing though. We had
Well,
to
yeah.
sweep the parking
yeah,
lot.
Yeah.
Got caught stealing beer.
I wasn't involved in that one though.
Not the beer, the cigarettes.
Yeah.
Had to sweep the parking lot a couple
Yeah.
of times. Yeah.
So then,
Lessons learned.
you know, some of the other memories I have of the two of you is the years that you guys had the softball teams.
Oh yeah.
Like those are some really fun memories as a kid, going to the softball games, you know, watching you guys play softball. I don't remember the co-ed really as much. I know you've talked about it, but I only really remember
Always in the fall.
really only remember the summer men's league games and going to like Gabiola Park and watching, because a lot of not everybody on the softball team, but a fair amount of guys on the softball team actually worked with you guys too, right? Like a couple of them, more than two of you.
Well,
like Leroy.
Leroy was our pitcher,
Mm-hmm.
and then I don't think there was anybody else on the team that worked down there.
I remember that Tom Harrison guy. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Dennis Mitchell.
Yeah.
And then who else did we have? Kevin Shane was, and then there was Savage Dave, Jared Gibbons.
Was Grandpa a big was he like a big, remember you talking about, but Grandpa was big into like sponsoring softball, women's softball, right?
Then he sponsored the men's team later. That's when your dad and I was playing on it.
Yeah.
He played third base, I played second base.
Yeah.
I always remember the one night we're playing for the city championship. Okay. The other team had 9 guys on the team. They're kicking our butt. Okay.
Didn't we have anybody on the bench?
I fire a ball from second base over to third as this guy's running towards third. Your dad's playing third. Catches the ball, slaps the guy in the back of the head, knocks him out. We had to call an ambulance to get the guy hauled off.
We won.
Yeah.
Did you win by default?
Pretty much.
Yeah, because they only had 8.
But here's the other thing. So we had to play him again. And we throttled them second time.
Okay. But did they actually have 9 players, or did they have to play with 8 again?
Well, they had to finish with 9. They didn't have anybody else on the bench. So if you started with 9, you had to finish with 9.
Yeah. Okay. How many years did you guys play softball?
Oh,
a lot.
5, 6, 7 years.
It seems like there was a fair
Till
amount
I
of
blew
years.
my knee out.
Playing softball?
Yeah. Kind of one of those sliding into second base and then changing your mind at the last second. Kind of snap your knee sideways.
Or your cleats bite on you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the little.
That was pretty much the end of it.
Remember we were playing for another championship, and the guy comes sliding in. I was playing catcher. The guy comes sliding in home to take me out.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up in a hospital going too. Ambulance ride to the hospital. Look how we worked in the scrapyard all the time. I mean, we were nothing but shithouse muscles, you know, and we
would play these
through iron all day long.
We was in our probably mid to late 30s, and we're playing against these kids that just getting out of high school and in college, like 25-year-olds, and we're just kicking their ass.
Yeah. No, those are some of my best memories. Give me one of your favorite memories about growing up working at United Metals. Give me 1, 2, whatever. Anything. It doesn't have to be like your bet. Just something off the top of your head that makes you smile.
Makes me smile.
Well, I'll start with my memories. There's a lot of people that we've talked about here, but there was a lot of family. This scrapyard began, and it was just nothing but family.
It was family.
And it was difficult. I mean, there was days and weeks you'd get along, and then there was days and months you dreaded to even go to work, and then it made Christmases and stuff like that even
a little tense.
Yeah, a little more.
Because I was kind of the stepchild of the bunch. I was about the only one that wasn't family related some way or another.
Yeah.
But he was always in there. He was always involved. He was always with us.
Mm-hmm. Camping trips, everywhere.
Yeah, everything. So.
And you and I have talked about this.
I just want to make sure that we talk
about.
No,
I want to. Let's go there because it's something you and I have talked about, and I've said, by the time I came along, it was pretty much grandma and grandpa. There's some memories of Uncle Ron a little bit before he left to go to work for the cement company. I don't remember that much about Uncle Robert being there because by that time it wasn't that in the 80s that Grandpa had bought the muffler shop, and then I think that move was made with with Uncle Robert. And you guys, you have a lot more memories of like the extended family being there than I do. But I do think it's important to have the conversation and say, okay, because I've wrote about it a few times, like, but and a lot of scrap companies are this way, right? This is how they start, and it's like whoever, you feel like can give you some contribution, whether it's a brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, your mom, dad, it's just a family affair. And I think that's the way that our industry has been, and still to this day, a lot of places are very,
It was a sign of the times. Even the dairies did that.
Okay.
I mean, everybody, the farmers, the dairies, they
so
all
I don't
did
want to.
that.
I'm like you. I don't want to gloss over it because I know that the only reason that we exist today is because there's a lot of family to get over like early humps, right? A lot of people doing a lot
Right,
of
and that was
different
the
things.
thing. That was the thing with your mom and dad, Bert and Wilma. They treated me just like they treated you every day.
Yeah.
And if I needed something, your dad would give it to me or whatever. It's just like the first week I started working there, and I got paid my normally hourly wage, was probably $1 an hour at the most.
Who knows? Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
whatever it was. And so, and I moved out on my own. I'm renting an apartment, and I went in.
What you needed to do.
Yeah, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in and I told your dad, I said, I can't quite survive on this. Could you give me a little bit more money? And he did. And made it to where I could survive.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, the company at that time wasn't making a fortune, but he made it affordable for me to live. And I'll always remember that.
Yeah. And I think that's part of like how businesses grow is like sometimes you get lucky and you're a farmer and you have 8 kids or whether it's you're at a dairy or a scrapyard and you got a lot of help back when kids were more of an asset than they are a liability like today, right? They're a little more
reason why they had
expensive.
so many
That's why they
kids.
had kids because they needed the help and I think that's like a big piece to not just our business but a lot of businesses out there. But I think I wrote about this before. I mean, because of what you've told me. Your brother worked in the business, your brother-in-law, your mom, your dad, your sisters, like, and then people that aren't necessarily blood family, but they are family, like kin, which is kind of how I operate today. I don't necessarily have any blood family in any of the businesses, but I got a lot of people that are like my family that have put in their time and paid a lot of dues, so they are family, right? Because we got more people now today than you guys did then. But I think that families play a big role, in the business and create a lot of fucking heartache too.
It's not always rosy with whatever you do in life.
Well,
You're going to have your trials and tribulations and with whatever you do. And United Metals for one thing, we struggled a lot of years before we became a great company. And the reason why I say we is because I felt like I'm part of that. And you guys tell me that all the time.
100%. What do you think helped you make the transition to be from a company that struggled to become a great company?
Keep working at it.
We worked at it a lot, but the biggest thing that really stepped us up in the game was when we partnered with Snitzer Steel.
True.
'Cause
But you
that allowed us to buy.
put everything on the line for that.
Oh yeah,
You did. You and Debbie.
yeah. Hawked her underwear and everything.
Oh yeah. And you asked me what I wanted to do in the company at that time, and I said, well, I just want to be your right-hand man. I'll help you out with whatever. And
And you did.
Yeah. And if he wanted something,
You
and we argued about stuff all the time.
You refinanced your house so that I could afford to buy a piece of property
Well,
to
yeah.
expand United Hauling. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, that's stepping up to the plate, man.
Yeah. That's stuff we did back then.
And that's what I want people to know. Like, that's the type of stuff that I think can get lost as things get bigger is what it took to get to the point to where you could even have a bank willing to fucking talk to you. Or want to, but you know what I mean? Like, all that stuff that had to happen to get to that point, you know, is, and I was, because obviously, you know, when you say, you know, from a struggling company to a good company, great company, was, you know, a lot of it's attributed to timing, a ton of hard work, and the third piece that I'll say is willing to bet on yourself, right? Like, most people want the accolades, or they want the, you know, the check at the end of the day, or they want to say they, you know, but they're afraid to bet on themselves. They want to use somebody else's money or somebody else's credentials, because they're afraid that if they use their own, or they don't, you know, that they're now putting their selves on the line, and if they lose, they're more afraid of losing.
Right.
Versus just saying, fuck
exactly.
I'm willing to.
And the one person that, and Rod will even vouch for this, Jim Goodrich helped a lot back in the day with keeping us going in the right direction, making sure we were all right. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was his job. And he was very good at his job.
Yes, he was.
I wrote about it, I discussed it with the Recycling Today people, and then the transition from, you know, United Metals being privately owned to being 50% owned by Schnitzer Steel, and because you said it, and you said it kind of helped you become a more mature company. Like, it took you from kind of being a teenager to being like maybe a 20-something-year-old, like, so you had a little more responsibility. You had help, but you also had like someone that kind of that you had to kind of show them what you're doing, and someone that you kind of had to prove out that you were worth the investment, right? I mean, plus the help, right? Guys like Jim Goodrich and Terry Glukoft and some of those, you know, old school Schnitzer guys were a big part of that puzzle as well, even though they didn't necessarily work for United Metals. So which property did you refinance your house to help buy?
The one on Linden, I believe.
His house was on Linden.
No, but which property, which United Metals property?
Where the Arch Building's at.
The Arch Building. This is the old Simplot grain silos?
Yeah.
Yep. I remember the day that whole place burnt down, that whole block. And then the grain towers were still there. And the fire department was down there, and we had cars that we had stacked up against the warehouse. And they caught on fire. Because that was a hot fire.
Oh, I bet. Because were they woods? They were...
That was a wood structure. That was,
right.
Yeah, which is why it burned so hot.
That was like in 79 maybe.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
79, 80, somewhere in there. When that...
The other one that comes to mind, too, is when we had the train wreck come down through there. They said, well, we made the comment, well, you know, they could have come on this side of the tracks, and we would have just cut the train up.
But instead, they hired us, and we unloaded candy bars.
Yeah, all night long. Yeah.
Sometimes you just, if somebody's willing to hire you and they're willing to pay you, at some point you just say, okay, I'll do whatever.
So much foot traffic through the scrapyard, we couldn't get anything done. Everybody wants to see a train run. For days. So they just hired us to go unload it was the Mars bars.
Mars, Snickers, Three Musketeers. I think
There's a lot of candy bars. We didn't get to eat any either.
No, they made sure they got the whole thing.
The other thing I remember too was when you guys crushed those brand new, was it like an insurance deal? You crushed those brand new
84 Chevy
pickups.
step-side pickups.
Yeah.
I got the horn button off.
I saw that. I remember because I actually ended up with that truck, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I remember you saying like this.
No, it was 88.
Yeah, because the
88
was the truck that I had. It was your old maroon step side. So, And I remember that horn button. I remember you saying, this came off. This is how we got this. And
How many
Insurance
times
guys
did you
were
wreck that pickup?
I hit 2 fucking deer with that truck.
Yeah.
You gave me a deer magnet. Yeah, 2 deer with that truck. Yeah, man. One in Eastern Oregon and one on my way to court in Washington, Colfax County.
Mm-hmm.
I got in a little fist fight up there, and I had to go to court. So many memories, and so much fun, and like ultimately, I don't want to make this thing go any longer than it needs to be, but I just felt it to be super, super important. To get you guys together, because I know that you guys spent so many years together, and you guys are. I look up to both of you. I mean, you're like an uncle to me as much as any uncle I ever had, or probably more. I probably spent more time around you.
That's what you used to call me.
Exactly.
Uncle Ken.
And that's why, I wanted you. I appreciate you take some time out of your guys' busy days. But you earned your busy days, so I appreciate you sitting down. I want people to know that when you see United Metals today, the only reason it even exists today is because of all the shit that happened and all the hard work that got put in and all the betting on yourself that got done way before I ever even showed up, right? And this is like a accumulation of a lot of people betting on themselves, a lot of people betting on our ability to sustain the company, a lot of people, multiple people's contributions. So we could have a Hall of Fame wall that's 50 people deep. I mean, I really believe that, right? But our first iteration, we kind of had to say, okay, this is how we're going to start, just kind of like the same way the NFL Hall of Fame or whatever, every year you kind of come back and you say, okay, who deserves to be here and who deserves to be a part of it? And I think we'll probably continue doing it, but there's so many people that contributed to what it is today. What you see today only exists because of all those people's contributions, family included, grandma, grandpa, the aunts and uncles, all those people played tremendous roles. Not taking anything away from any of them, but more just saying we appreciate everybody's contributions up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to get lost on people. This shit wasn't built overnight. It wasn't built from 2004 to 2022. It was built from 1972 to 2022. Little bit by little bit, everybody trying to do the next best thing and keep
And hiring excellent people along the way.
100%. Yep. I mean, from the guys, from that started in the 70s to the guys that we hire next week, right? Or we hired last week or 8 years ago. Like everybody's became, has played their role in it. Some of them have taught you who you don't want to hire ever again, and some of them have said, man, if I could clone that guy, I'd do it 50 times over, But it is what it is. I appreciate you guys coming in. If there's anything you want to leave with, like now's the time. Say it now or forever hold your peace, at least until next year, and I con you into doing this again.
I just kind of wish your grandpa, my dad, could hear it, because I'd say, hey, Dad, remember when you told me I couldn't be successful because I love trucks too much? Come to the truck show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love to see you there.
How about you, Ken?
The one thing what was I thinking? Oh, way back in the day when I was a young, naive, dumb kid, probably still am.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I remember talking to your dad. And I said, Bert, what are we going to do when we run out of scrap? And he looked at me and he says, as long as there's a human being on this planet, there will always be scrap.
Yep.
And I said, well, that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
it's true.
Yeah, we've ran out of farm scrap pretty much. I mean, there's some farm scrap out there, but nothing like
right.
That was our bread and butter,
Yep.
and now that's gone. It's all just commercial scrap now.
Right.
So, and household scrap, right?
Yep.
which is still good scrap.
It's
You
great
know,
scrap.
it still makes the world go round.
Yep.
But I appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for coming
Thank you,
in,
Brett.
and I love
Thank
you guys. And we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having the party tomorrow or Friday and Saturday if it wasn't for the two of you. So, cheers.
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 Thanks, guys.